My name is Vexine, and I've helped my clients get over 2.5 billion long-form views on YouTube, and my current client portfolio does roughly 100 million views a month. And there's one strategy that I use that's helped me beat 99% of the competition from all other strategists and individual YouTubers in the same niche. And this strategy is my personal strategy that I've developed over the past few years called presence of mind ideation. Now, let's break down what presence of mind ideation is and how you can use it to potentially grow your channel much faster and way more easily. So presence of mind ideation is pretty simple. All it is in essence is it's things that are present of mind that you can leverage for your viewers. If you want an exact definition, it's topics, ideas, movements, people, or just kind of anything that takes up bandwidth subconsciously or consciously in a potential viewer's mind. A great example of this is going to be Fern. Fern does presence of mind ideation incredibly well, mapping the Trump shooting. So 4 days after the Trump shooting, they did a classic video in their Fern style where they made a video about an event that was topical. And the reason why it was topical is because obviously it's massive news. It's everywhere on social media and in the news, and it's going to be present of your mind, consciously or subconsciously. It's also going to reach outside of just any market, right? It's going to be able to penetrate interest markets outside of their typical video essays and stories because it's topical for around the world, has massive repercussions. Mr. Beast, if I go to More Pegasus, there's been recent Mr. Beast drama. And because there's been Mr. Beast drama, More Pegasus has been grinding it out because Mr. Beast is present of mind. You can social hack. Social hacking is also present of mind because that individual person that you're social hacking is present of mind. Same thing with trend jacking. You can jack specific trends because they might be popular and might be present of mind to that specific audience that you are trying to get. So you can jack a trend and ride the wave up. I can maybe show you examples of trend jacking later. So mainly presence of mind is going to be social hacking, trend jacking, event hacking, or just anything that's like kind of an interest topic at the point. So yeah, this is a big thing here. Obviously, More Pegasus has made generational wealth from the just spamming the drama because the drama is present of mind to all of the audience of not only YouTube because he's obviously the biggest star, but he's also social hacking as well, and also trend jacking because it's trendy to talk about it. So it's like all three, or it's a major event that people know about. It's going to be present in a lot of people's mind, consciously or subconsciously. It's going to be, hey, Mr. Beast's face. I'm going to click outside of that. It's also a trending format, thumbnail, but the thumbnail format, we're not going to talk about that and everything in between. Next up is Dartra. So this is an example of social hacking, make some great content. And this is not related to the Mr. Beast drama, but an interesting thing that can happen is if you do social hack someone and they do end up getting in drama, you can kind of get some trickle down views through the fact that, hey, you've social hacked that person in the past and they're now present of mind. So you can kind of get an influx in things. A good example of that is I used to work with Jacksepticeye. He had a video that was a Titanic horror game video. And when the Ocean Gate incident happened where there was a little submarine that went down to the Titanic and it imploded. That video jumped in views, like millions and millions of views, because people were interested in that topic. They were watching the Ocean Gate topic, and then just by whatever reason, because it was everywhere on the news, people that watched Jacksepticeye's channel got recommended that video again because I had watched this video. So YouTube uses that as a touch point to be like, oh, you might be interested in this video. So they watched that. It was kind of reverse presence of mind ideation. That's actually a little bit different in terms of suggested. We're not going to talk about that, but it's interesting. The Ocean Gate stuff happened. That everyone did Ocean Gate videos, and because it was present in mind, did really well. So I mean, I can even show you that here if I do Ocean Gate. I should probably put my keyboard up a little bit so I can see it. Ocean Gate. Recreation a year ago did incredibly well. This video essay on did really well. Engineering did really well. These are all massive outliers for these guys. Just because it was super present in mind, they just kind of farmed on it really easily. So outside of that, we can go to lessons in meme culture. This is a great guy. So this guy talks about memes. So present in mind things can be people, it can be ideas, it can be events, it can be movements. So memes are generally movements or ideas or something that's interesting. So for example, some of these, might not make sense. Ronaldo broke YouTube. Yeah, he did kind of break YouTube. Is that really that interesting? I don't know. The brother may I see my oats. I've seen this everywhere on Twitter. I've seen the circles everywhere on Twitter. I love this meme. And people that are interested in these that morbidly are online, they consume them. This is stuff that, or terminally online rather, and to consume these memes, they'll probably see it on YouTube and oh, it's present in mind. I'm going to click on it because I'm familiar with it, right? And a nice advantage of things being present in mind, it's going to lower the barrier of entry to attention to getting a view. So this is the exact strategy that I've used on Couch Co-op, for example, where I have built out this kind of repertoire of doing things present in mind. Now these two are outlier ideation, which is not present in mind. I'm kind of shifting that focus just because it's really hard to keep up in a competitive market where games release so quickly to make a piece of quality content in a time frame that makes sense to kind of leverage that presence of mind stuff. And in some cases, like the Elden Ring video, it can massively backfire. That being said, things that I did that were present of mind. So this was the depressing decline of Call of Duty, which is what this was also data backed, but it was also present of mind because we knew for a fact this is how the community was feeling, which was a movement, a sentiment was present in mind. Same thing with the Rainbow Six Siege was almost in the number 1 FPS. This is where you're tapping into nostalgia. So again, presence of mind doesn't have to be actively on top of your mind. It just has to be in your mind in some way, whether that be subconsciously as well. An active presence of mind play was more of the Helldivers 2 Change Gaming Forever and the finals. These are things that were definitively already out in the world. They were already picking up a lot of traction, and we timed it in such a way that they blew up. Outside of that, something else is present of mind, but in a little bit of a different strategy, is the grim philosophy of Couture. Anytime a piece of Star Wars media comes out, which is often thanks to Disney absolutely destroying the license due to either shows or movies that are not very good consistently coming out, people who have an affinity for Star Wars and who've played Couture might watch this video. This video also, I will say, is an outlier in terms of length. It is double the average length of every video on the channel, so that is also helping it drive views pretty consistently due to being recommended more to TV, which again was part of the actual internal strategy for that specific video, because we knew the audiences that were familiar with Star Wars are going to be a little bit older and going to be consuming content on TV because they're going to be watching the Star Wars show on TV or the Star Wars movie on TV. So that way we kind of like leveraged, we played into that. So that's like more of like a massively high level meta strategy, something that you can steal as well. But at the end of the day, presence of mind works out like this. Let's say, there is, this is like the interest bar graph, right, of something, right? Okay. And this is like week 1. And this is also something that I have to kind of point out, week 1. And then we have week 2, right? Presence of mind is also, unfortunately, a little bit cyclical in the sense that it's kind of time-based. There's a concept that I call time decay in terms of ideation, where some ideas only make sense to do right away, where others make sense to do a little bit later. Presence of mind ideation really does kind of come down to time decay, unless you're doing social hacking, which is a little bit different. Your time decay is essentially much longer because the shelf life of the person that you're social hacking is relevant. So for example, if I did a video on The Undertaker, I can maybe social hack that a little bit for an older audience if I was doing like a wrestling-esque video. But if I'm doing something that's more aligned with Apple Vision Pro, which popped off earlier this year, which I can show you that way, Apple Vision Pro, it is something that had a time decay of pretty fast, 2 weeks, right? All these videos did if I open up Marquise, who's a great YouTuber, I love Marquise, by the way. If I go here and I go to popular, it's one of his most popular videos, right? It's a massive outlier, and he might have even milked it for 2 or 3 videos, knowing him. So he milked it for 3 videos, and as you can see, every subsequent version of that video did more and more poorly. Besides the Apple Pro unboxing, that did okay, and then they proceeded to do worse and worse over time. And the main reason for that is it's time decay, but also there's audience fatigue. But yeah, mostly time decay, so week 2. And this is mostly going to be focused on, and we'll do week, I don't know, week 3, right? Week 3. So this is going to be events. So presence of mind ideation does suffer from the fact that it has a kind of inverse time decay in the sense that where over time, depending on the event, the thing that's happening that you're trying to tap into, you're going to get diminishing returns. So it's better to capitalize on it quickly. The issue with capitalizing it on quickly is that you're most likely going to be destroying your quality. You're going to be saving time, but not at the cost of quality, right? At the expense of quality, which depending on your channel might actually be worse in another sense, where it's if you're known for putting out high quality stuff and then you put out stuff that is lower quality, there's a potential issue there. I'm not even gonna get into that. That's another video on its own. But yeah, so that's just kind of something to know about. Also, if you do a strategy like I'm doing, where you're doing kind of a dormant thing, where you have these evergreen presence of mind ideation, where it's you're waiting for things to hit over and over and over again over time. You also face a potential issue that you might not hit as consistently as you'd like. So for example, the Counter-Strike stuff, every time there's going to be an update to Counter-Strike, whether it be let's say renewed interest for external interest from, let's say, a major, or let's say there's going to be an operation in Counter-Strike, then I'm going to get a little bit of a bump as people come back into the game, which is going to be quite nice. So that's cool. But the inverse issue of presence of mind ideation is that everyone does it, right? So for example, if I look at let's say social hacking, or just kind of authority hacking is also kind of a presence of mind. That's besides the point. Social hacking with Mr. Beast, right? We've got Mr. Beast. Okay, so I've got Mr. Beast right here. Okay, this is cool, but there's a large amount of saturation in the Mr. Beast market as well, right? So the saturation for Mr. Beast is probably I'll just do a little arrow here where it's is left side 0 saturation, right side is 100 saturation. It's probably at 95 saturation, where it's it's going to be really, really, really hard to stand out in the Mr. Beast kind of era by using him to social hack him, for example. There are definitely ways to do it and adjacent ways to do it. So for example, I have a good friend called Justical. Maybe you've heard of it, by Leander Hopkins. Which knowing, I don't know if he knows this, or he probably does. I mean, he's a genius. He's one of my favorite YouTube strategists currently out. But yeah, one of the things that he does is he does like Where Are the Losers of Mr. Beast, where he's like tying in like an interesting aspect, like an outlier format with social hacking, and you can leverage that to the correct audience. The Satisfying Downfall of Nadia, Warzone Cheater, right? So like the Satisfying Downfall is something that's worked like really well. Nadia at the time was super present of mind, so you're actually like, you know, leveraging the fact that you have an outlier format with a presence of mind event. So all these things work out really, 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 really well. Sometimes they don't though, because you can also kind of hallucinate presence of mind. And what I mean by hallucinate presence of mind is, let's say you are a subject matter expert, right? So like you are a SME, subject matter expert. You are going to have an innate bias to whatever thing that you're talking about or that you have an understanding of. So like, let's say I'm a subject matter expert on gaming, which is why I had a kind of an innate bias on Elden Ring actually changed gaming forever, which like it's a proven format, right? So I'm doing, you know, a proven format, right? And it's presence of mind, which is like a massive criteria for me when it comes up with ideation on this channel at the time, presence of mind. And because I'm these, what you have is you actually have a blind bias, where because it's meeting my criteria, I'm not looking at the non-factor criteria. So like, let's say it's meeting like my initial criteria, so I just like blindly push it through because of my innate bias, because I'm a subject matter expert in this specific niche, which is the only downside of presence of mind ideation, where you might focus really, 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 really hard on something that makes a lot of sense to you. You're seeing it trending in your niche because you understand this is presence of mind. You can see like people talking about it, whatever kind of metrics you use to determine this is a presence of mind thing or a presence of mind event or social hacking, whatever it may be. And then from there, you have a blind bias. You're like, I'm going to do it without actually looking at external factors like, oh, like maybe this is a time related thing, right? Or maybe this is an event that actually doesn't make sense for my core audience. Or maybe because this is such a massive outlier in terms of presence of mind ideation, people might actually be focusing their attention somewhere else for this specific interest or attention. So they might actually not watch your videos. This is what happened to the this video right here, which actually that was quite good. So yeah, there's like a lot of issues with presence of mind ideation. I won't lie, but it can actually work very, very well in terms of like, let's say interest markets and things like that. And there's also like, you know, a decent amount of ways that you can leverage it in terms of like I said social hacking, event hacking, and there's an event going on. That's kind of what, like I said, Fern did here, and Fern's really good about it. You can also leverage it with popular formats or winning formats like Justicle's done, Leander, and you'll find out it wins really well that way. It's also really good to tie into news as well, so you can kind of leverage the news in certain degrees to really kind of push out your content. Same thing with like presence of mind ideation also goes for the same way with thumbnails. So for example, if I do, so Nick Alma, I pranked the most racist man, right? So obviously that's a working format, but another way that you can utilize presence of mind ideation also extends to the thumbnails, where using the BBC thumbnail is technically presence of mind, because I'm sure you've probably seen it. You've seen similar news headers, so you can use that functionally to get interest from the viewer. We're like, oh, I'm familiar with this. So by using that presence of mind, it actually helps lower the barrier of entry to attention, which is something that we could probably talk about on its own in another video. But essentially, like before a viewer clicks, there's this barrier of entry to attention, and they have to get through this barrier of entry of attention to click the video, right? So this is the barrier of entry, right? This is the viewer's attention. So like viewer attention. So that's the viewer attention. This is the barrier of entry, and this is the video, right? Video, yay! This is the video. Before they watch the video, they have to get through the barrier of entry attention, and then once you're in the video, there's like multiple of these barrier of entries of attention throughout, which is where like retention strategy actually comes in handy really well, which is something that Mario knows quite a bit about. And you have to like kind of lead them through these barriers of entry. That's how you kind of avoid drop off. But you can lower that barrier of entry of attention just a little bit by doing something that's familiar with them, and things that are familiar with them are likely things that are present of mind or they have an innate understanding of because they're familiar with it. Nico, being someone who's from London and has a probably large UK audience, would have known what the BBC is before it gets pushed out to a wider audience because it's such a good idea. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to leverage that, and that's going to be like a geolocational thing where he's tapping into the presence of mind of his core audience early on based on geolocation to then push it out to a further audience later, which also would probably know about it because they can see similarities with their own stuff. That's like some really high level stuff if you want to do that. I don't know if it makes the most sense to do it. It kind of does. I have a whole like thumbnail like thing coming out on Twitter eventually, which is going to break down like all the specific thumbnails and how you can potentially use presence of mind ideation through social hacking via brands to lower the barrier of entry click to certain audiences. That could be kind of good to talk about. But yeah, I thought I'd bring that up in terms of thumbnails as well, which is also why social hacking works, why we have Mr. Beast in the Dara Ta thumbnails, why this makes a lot of sense for lessons in meme culture, why he's using the meme in that. So yeah, I thought this was really interesting. It's really high level stuff that no one talks about, again, because it is complex, and this is also my kind of school of ideation that I've developed and pioneered over the time. If you see anyone saying presence of mind ideation that isn't me, call them out. don't call them out. I mean, feel free to use it and utilize it. But yeah, I thought I talked about that. It neatly wraps up things like social hacking, event hacking, interest hacking as well, and trend jacking as well is another big one. There's a trend, you can ride the trend, which is also what Lesson Meme Culture done, because the memes in themselves are movements, but they're also trends that you can then hack and get back up. So yeah, again, super high level YouTube strategy stuff that no one really talks about. And thought I'd bring it up, as well as some of the issues and the downsides, as well as also how I kind of look at YouTube. And I think, and you see all these like really kind of complex advanced strategies. All this is going on in my head 24/7, for better or for worse, and they're all like interconnected. So what I'm explaining to you, which might look complex, there's way more stuff going on that I just do subconsciously at this point for clients. And it's pretty cool stuff. So I thought I'd share it, and maybe you guys could utilize this to get more views on your channel. If you also want another way to get more views on your channel, the best way to do that is to hire me and my team at 1 of 10. I'm the head of strategy for 1 of 10, managing a client portfolio of over 22 clients that have like in my career so far, 2.5 billion long form views. My current client portfolio does over 100 million views a month pretty comfortably. It's actually probably closer to 250 million views a month, if I'm being honest. And if you want to work with me, it costs $1,500 per month, minimum 3 months. Upfront is the lowest package. And if you are really serious about this stuff and you do want to take your YouTube to the next level and you have the funds to do it, hit me up. We have varying packages that scale from $1,500 a month all the way up to much more. Then with that, you can get some very white glove services that we do on YouTube that no one else does. So let me know if you're interested in that. If not, I hope you can take what I taught you in this video and use that to come up with viral ideas for your channel to hopefully one day get big enough to work with me. It's been vexing, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. See you later.